Alright, so with the power of three concept, or simply said accumulation, manipulation, and distribution, we always have three phases. The first one, obviously, is accumulation. The second one is a manipulation, and the third one is the distribution or expansion. So it always looks something like this. We have an accumulation. We go sideways for a specific period of time. There's no general rule about this, maybe a session, maybe throughout a day. It depends on which time frame you end up spotting it. And then eventually the accumulation is followed by a manipulation move into one direction. And then later on, during the next session, or maybe during week number 3 of a monthly cycle, we have the expansion to the upside. So all we do here is fake out traders, hunt sell side liquidity, and move to buy side liquidity above that initial accumulation high. And for the opposite scenario, we still accumulate, but this time we manipulate to the upside, and then we expand or distribute to the downside. Very simple. And today, like we already said at the beginning, we saw a perfect example of this. So right here, we're still inside the Asian session. It's 2:45 a.m. New York local time. So that next 15-minute candle here on the S will be our London Open. And at this point in time, that's really crucial for the power of free concept. I want you to imagine what the daily candle looks like. All our VIP members, they have the higher time frame candles indicator. It doesn't work in replay mode, so this is why I'm drawing it up here now. Let's use a red candle because right now we opened up on this price level. Our high close was right here. We have our wick. This is currently what the daily candle looks like with the information that we have available. Right here we have the low already because of this 6 p.m. New York local time opening, where we open up with this huge gap. Initially we retraced but ended up with a up closing candle. But right now the major part you should be concerned about is to have criteria number 1 satisfied, which would be the accumulation. So with that next 15-minute candle, we can already see that we sweep one side of the accumulation. We have equal highs here. We have buy side above this high, and we have the session buy side, the Asian buy side liquidity pool, untouched. And then if we continue, we saw a pretty strong sell-off during the London session, which eventually hit the targets that I outlined in the weekly outlook. If you haven't watched that, make sure to watch it. It's Monday. We still have 4 more trading days left this week. Closed below it, and we eventually continued lower to hit the low of the month for October. Give it a little bit more time. We continued lower, and eventually we hit it. Alright, so the time right now is 5 a.m. New York local time. That's the end of the kill zone. And like I showed you earlier, we accumulate. We have a one-sided move clearly into sell side. We still have buy side liquidity available. We're below the New York midnight level. And right now, the daily candle looks something like this. We have a pretty bearish candle. And what happened next is we continued even lower without any buy side liquidity being taken. And once again, you have to imagine or use an indicator for it what the daily candle currently looks like. We swept all the higher time frame objectives, and that's also very crucial. We swept the low of the month. So right now what we're forming down here is the low of the monthly candle. And if you want to buy low and sell high, it makes sense to use these relative points, like being at the low of the week, at the low of the day, at the low of the month. We cleared previous week's low, we cleared the NFP low from back over here. So we took that sell side, and if we turn on daily fair value gaps, we can see that we filled in this entire daily bullish fair value gap. The next daily bullish fair value gap would come in down here. So there's a little bit of space in between, and the next daily sell side is all the way down here. So after having swept that, price likes to move from external sell side liquidity back into internal buy-side liquidity. Knowing that and knowing the power of free concept, where we accumulate, manipulate into one direction and then expand into the opposite direction, we were well prepared for the New York session. And at the beginning of today's live stream, maybe you haven't seen that one, I mentioned exactly that. So right here, now it's 8:15. I started live streaming just at 9:30. So we can already see that 9:30 candle. Before that 9:30 candle, we retraced. And what did we hit? The 50% level of today's range. So we hit that with a bearish order block right here. We didn't get above that. Hit the 50%. And with the 9:30 opening, what did we do? We swept the London sell side. So right here, we swept that London sell side liquidity pool. Let me mark that up. London sell side liquidity pool has been taken. And note, this time we do not close below it. We closed below the NFP and PVL low. We closed below the October low, but now we failed to close below here on the 15-minute time frame. And the daily candle right now is extremely bearish. This is what it looks like at this point in time. Knowing that we have the potential for a power of free setup after having swept external sell side on weekly, monthly and daily time frames, we have a accumulation at the high of the day. We've expanded, or we were being manipulated into one direction during the London session. So we basically had Asia accumulation, London expansion, and with that 9:30 opening, we had one last manipulation leg to the downside to make sure all the longs are stopped out, because they very likely have their stop right here below this London sell side liquidity. They already anticipated that reversal. But knowing the power of free concept, what would we target? The Asian buy side liquidity pool. And now let's see what happened. We had a massive bullish engulfing here on the 15-minute time frame with a confirmed market structure shift to the upside. So here's our market structure shift. Now we look for the highest up closing candle, which would be this one right here, between our lower high of this bearish market structure, where we made a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low, and now we made a higher high. So we look for the highest up closing candle between this lower high and this lower low, and draw in our breaker block. Wait one candle, and what do we see? We leave behind a nice 15-minute bullish fair value gap. And I stuck to the 15-minute time frame today because, yeah, I didn't really expect any of these lower fair value gaps on like something the 1 or 5-minute time frame to be filled. We're just too bullish for that. And with a power of free setup, that's usually what's happening most of the time. You do not get filled on these lowest fair value gaps. And since I liked the 15-minute time frame 2022 model, this is essentially the 2022 model, but now paired with confluence of the power of free or accumulation, manipulation, distribution or expansion into the opposite direction basically. So I placed my limit order right here. I also shared that on live stream today. My stop loss was right here below the slow, just targeting Asia buy side, which already was 25 points. So looking at that, what happened? We got filled, and once we got filled, we had a nice bullish pin bar candle. We were inside the current week, new week's opening gap, and went sideways for a little bit, but eventually, no, we didn't even went sideways here on the 15. This is what happens if you stick to lower time frames, and eventually we hit our 25-point target very, very easily. And this is exactly what I was talking about. We have the accumulation, we have the manipulation, we manipulate one last time, we displace and shift structure. This is the entries you would like to take with the power of free setups. You want to see one last final manipulation, and then you enter on the breaker block 2022 setup, whatever you want to use for an entry. It's more about, yeah, trying to imagine what the higher time frame candle, so the daily candle, will end up like. And we had a super bearish candle so far, we still remember that. And now what happened? Now we have left behind a massive wick right here. Where's the low? Candle looks something like this now, a bullish up closing candle. So all of a sudden a super bearish candle, daily candle, turned into a bullish candle with a massive rejection wick after just hitting all these sell side targets. That's really what we're building on here. Let's see what else happened. We continued further to the upside, I think. Yep, and how could we anticipate that? How do we know how far we're gonna expand towards or to? We measure from the low to the high of our last manipulation, where we cleared that London sell side liquidity, and we use the Fib retracement tool to project standard deviations. So right here, let me get rid of these internal ones. I'm using these settings, 0.5, 1 to 2.5. They're not in order, but you get the point. Every 0.5 standard deviations, and one standard deviation was hit perfectly, and usually a trend stops at either 2.5 or 4. There's no fixed rule for it, but you would like to see, okay, do we have any buy side liquidity matching up around a key level like 2.5? So right here, 2 standard deviations would deliver us into Friday's high buy side liquidity. Not sure if we will see it today. We could also use a little bit of a retracement. Let's see what the PM session has to offer later on. But yeah, that is essentially the power of free concept, how a initial bearish daily candle can turn into a bullish candle in the end of the day. And we use that power of free concept where we spot the accumulation, and then we see a one-sided move, and we have probabilities in our favor that it's a manipulation move. If we have taken important sell side liquidity, we wait for that last manipulation, displacement. We enter on the 2022 model, or for example the silverbullet setup, whatever you like to use for entries, or you just jump in with the break of structure or the market structure shift. 100 different ways to enter, but the power of free concept always stays the same. And yeah, today we got a perfect example of it. Once again, this is the accumulation, the London manipulation. Come on. Manipulation, and over here we have the expansion into buy-side liquidity. And of course, vice versa, the bearish scenario would look something like this. We consolidate, we have a fake pump to the upside, we have one last liquidity sweep, and reverse below our accumulation. This model can be found on every time frame. We could be looking at a daily chart, and then simply with the power of free higher time frame concept, we simply anticipate on the lower time frame what's going to happen on a higher time frame, because we already tried to visualize what the weekly, monthly, daily candle will look like by looking at lower time frames. But we always have the higher time frame in the back of our mind, because that's in the end of the day what we're trading. And yeah, like right here today, we had a free session example where Asia accumulated, London manipulated, and New York expanded. Very simple. This could be an entire month where we have the first week of the month where we spend inside accumulation. The second week we spend with a one-sided trend, which ends up being the manipulation. During the third week we have our last market structure or our last liquidity sweep with our displacement, and in the fourth week we really get the expansion. It's all fractal. That's really what all this is about. We trade on the lower time frames to get good entries, because on the higher time frame, if we look at the daily candle, yes, you could have entered somewhere down here, but you at this point in time you don't get that many insights or information, details, whatever, simply off that daily candle, because it looked super bearish initially. Going long on that doesn't make sense. That's why we use the lower time frames, where we can spot specific patterns like the accumulation, manipulation, and expansion pattern on a lower time frame to anticipate of what the higher time frame candle is going to do. I hope that made sense, and if you like this video, make sure to subscribe to my channel and like this video. You can also join our Discord server. I'm streaming live every day on YouTube for free, and also for our VIP members with a non-delayed stream on our Discord server. Take care and enjoy the rest of your trading day, guys.